hope in the night sky. I was at a park with friends, and I had wandered off by myself to an open prairie meadow. I sat down in the grass and looked up just in time to see a falling star. And then suddenly a second falling star streaked, and I remembered feeling this kind of gratitude, like, oh, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I was paying attention. 2 falling stars. It never happened to me before. And then, just as the tail of that one disappeared, a third shooting star appeared, and it just blazed across the horizon. And I actually kind of trembled a little bit, like, is this one gonna hit us? It was just going and going and going. I had never seen anything like it before, and as it faded, I can only describe what I felt as hope. It was a kind of hope that I'd never known before. This universe was more beautiful and mysterious than I'd ever imagined. And somehow I was connected to it. Somehow everything was going to be okay. 3 falling stars became my symbol. And yes, today, if you email 3fallingstars@hotmail.com, you will still find me there. That evening was my first inkling of what I now know as religious naturalism. Religious naturalism. Some may be familiar with it. This might be brand new for others. Some of you may be a religious naturalist and not even know it. Naturalism in the study of religion is a really interesting term. Most of the time people think of like a naturalist as someone who is an interpreter, works at maybe a nature center, teaches us about the outdoors, natural history, the different layers of stories of the land and all of the elements. But naturalism in religion is a term that means that you can reduce the experience of religion or spirituality to an explanation. So biologists often will say, oh, well, religion exists because it was conducive to reproduction. It helped us reproduce. It had an evolutionary advantage. Sociologists will say, well, religion happened because it created communities that could get along with each other and found meaning and had these rituals that kept communities going instead of fighting with themselves. And psychologists might say, religion happened because it created a balm from the anxiety of death and suffering that otherwise was just crushing people. So naturalism is this idea that religion and experience can be explained and is something that is in this world, but isn't supernatural, has no supernatural agents. There's no God or spirit beyond that's creating the spiritual lives. It's just part of something that we've developed as human beings. Religious naturalism, then, right, taking naturalism, this idea that all the world is what we can see, sense, measure, and adding a religious component to it. My former professor, Demian Wheeler, would describe it as this: religious naturalism is the perspective that regards nature as exhaustive of all reality and deserving of deep reverence. In other words, there does not have to be a supernatural force or being in order for there to be spiritual dimensions to our lives. Natural phenomena that is all around us is enough to bring awe and wonder, is worthy of reverence, and can even be considered the sacred. When you take away that duality of spirit and matter, the sacred and the profane, everything has the power to hold the sacred. Now, there's actually several different strains, all of which have kind of found a home in religious naturalism and that have their own identities outside of it. So, for example, animist religions or worldviews, these are where, like the Celtic tradition, the Gaelic tradition, a lot of indigenous traditions, spirit or creator is part of the world and also is in the mountains and in the stream. Panentheism, Celtic Christianity or like nature-based Christianity is, that spirit is in the body of the earth, that there is a spiritual dimension. And then perhaps pagan or pantheist that spirit and matter can be the exact same thing. So these are all, I know those are kind of different terminologies, and people are always like, really? You have to go into isms and ists and all these things. This is just how we talk about and give meaning to. A lot of times people even have intersecting understandings of these different ways of the spiritual and nature being together. But the main thing is that religious naturalism provides a home and a community for all who experience the sacred in nature and perhaps do or do not have language around God or spirit. Now, religious naturalism is not a religion like Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism. It's not a religion, at least not yet. It is a movement. And it's a movement where people who are seeking conversation, ritual, and reverence with direct experience, with awe and wonder, with science, with logic, with reason, with humanism and spirituality all flourish together. It allows for mystery and curiosity, evolution, to help make meaning out of the big questions of why we are here and what we should do about it. As Loyal Rue, a religious naturalist, points out, he says, religious naturalism is for those who take nature to heart. So what changes? Yes, right. So it's actually, within Western theism, this is a major break. In fact, it's been called monstrous. It's been called preposterous. It's been, if you think about how nature-based religions have been suppressed and worked to be annihilated, it is because spirit and matter in Western theism are dualistic. They're two different things. To say that there is no separation is to say that there is no separation between nature and humanity, that to be is to be nature. It's actually kind of a major theological leap for some. So the night I saw the 3 falling stars, I had wandered off because I was struggling with loss, and I just couldn't connect with my friends. I was confused about the world that was being revealed to me as a young adult, things like what was fair, and why do really good people suffer? A purely scientific explanation may go something like this. I experienced the Perseid meteor shower, a common occurrence in August when the Earth intersects icy debris, really space litter, left in the wake of the comet Swift-Tuttle that came close to the Earth's orbit in 1862. As it traveled, sunlight and inertia blew parts of the comet apart, leaving what is called a tail, or also called dirty space. In August, the northern hemisphere intersects this tail, and the icy dirt litter is heated and vaporized when it hits the friction of our atmosphere. The burning vapor is known as a shooting star or a falling star, and I was young, my brain was still developing, and I had some feelings when I saw these. This might be a scientific explanation, but it doesn't really inspire. It doesn't really explain why I had this experience, this affective moment where I found meaning, where I was soothed, where I felt there was hope in the world. What was that all about? But also the explanation that I personally had been brought up with a personal God who loved me and cared about me, and I was made in his image, who perhaps I could say that these 3 falling stars came from God, and they were a way to bring my wayward, sinful self back to religion, where I would somehow find everything was going to be okay. And this explanation also left me with a shiver, because I couldn't find inspiration in that either, when I was struggling with the loss of a childhood friend in hospice with leukemia, and that my grandparents were losing their farm because bankers can do things like that. So for a long time, I felt like I had to choose between this kind of scientific explanation of the world I was encountering or a religious explanation of the world I was encountering. One is a theist or a humanist. The world is reduced to facts or full of potential miracles. But religious naturalism creates a bridge between the two. So I'd like to just explore a little bit about what is like the religiousness of religious naturalism by using the quote by astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. He said, "We are all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically. We are all connected biologically. Over 150 years ago, Charles Darwin published this revolutionary book, Origin of Species, with this hypothesis that all of life comes from the tree of life, that here on Earth, life started 3,000 million years ago in the sea when chemical molecules blobbed together and formed cells. The building blocks of all life and matter as we know it here on Earth came from this. And today, this has been affirmed by modern genetics. I mean, is anyone else just that is a leap of faith. Can we really believe that? I mean, it's amazing, right? We are all connected biologically. I don't know, that might be one of the most amazing things that was preached on a Sunday morning today across the entire country. Whew. Darwin was noted as one of the most religious and pious members of the Beagle Voyage, which is where he gathered the data in the Galapagos Islands that led him to this conclusion. Yet his scientific discoveries and hypothesis that nature and natural processes actually create the great array of species, past and present, meant that his own beliefs shifted throughout his work. And in his autobiography, he wrote, "The mystery of the beginning of all things is insoluble by us, and I, for one, must be content to remain an agnostic." An agnostic, one who holds the questions and is okay with it. So we are rooted in biological connection. We are all connected chemically. I like to use the water cycle to demonstrate this one. The water in your coffee this morning could be the same water a dinosaur drank. I know, I'll pause for an amen. It's like believing in miracles, right? Really, this water? But it's true. There are these chemical cycles, water cycles, nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon, and others. And for the most part, these things cannot be, water cannot be created, right? We've created some small amounts of water in the lab. It's kind of dangerous. Explosions can happen. But for the most part, all the water we have is here and has been cycling throughout the ages. It cycles through us. It's cycled from those who came before us, and it cycles through those who come after. Cheers. We are all connected atomically. The teeny tiny building blocks of ourselves, atoms, came from the Big Bang, the nuclear fusion emitted when stars exploded. Literally, stardust courses through our veins. Tyson says that it's not only that we are in the universe, but the universe is in us. Just waiting for the oohs and ahs, whoa, right? I mean, the thing is a lot of us have been taught these things, we might have heard these things, but have we ever celebrated them? Do we have rituals that help us reconnect to these truths? Do we have myths that take them into consideration and help direct us to live ethically and morally? That's some of the work that religious naturalism is doing. One of the founders of the Religious Naturalist Association, yes, RNA, so cute, Ursula Goodenough, shares that in her book, where's your book? Maybe I cut it. I'm so sorry. The Sacred Depths of Nature, I believe is the title of the book, Volume 2. She shares that we now have everybody's story. So if you think about every single religion and culture has an origin story, where we came from and why we're here. Sometimes we've come out of the earth, sometimes we've come out of the sky, sometimes it was a combination of the both. But when it comes to understanding ourselves as stardust, that we descended from stardust, we now have everybody's story. Now, this is in no means a rebuke of the importance of cultural origin stories, and certainly not permission to dismiss them or appropriate them, but it does give us a larger context to situate the unique stories and identities and ways of being in our world that nest within the context of everybody's story, that rests in the context of being part of a tree of life. The common origin story links us to all life on earth and all humans, past and present, to and those to come. It links us to waters, rocks, and minerals. It connects us to the birth and death of stars. The epic of evolution also flattens a hierarchy, which is part of the creation story of about 55% of the world's population. So the Abrahamic traditions or the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic origin story in Genesis sets up a kind of hierarchy. You know, God created the heavens and the earth, created humans to steward the earth and nature. A very clear hierarchy of God, humans, nature, and it's very anthropocentric. You know, it really puts humans as the most important aspect of our Earth's creation. However, if you think of the epic of evolution, human beings emerge at the end of a colossal timescale. Our species seems almost insignificant when you look at when we emerged on the calendar. They say it's like if it's on a clock and evolution and the timescale has happened, we come at like 11:59 to the party. It decenters humanity, bringing the invitation for a little humility into our day-to-day experiences. Celebrating this, having rituals and holidays that commemorate this could help us live more peacefully with one another and in the balance with natural cycles. That's one of the hopes of religious naturalism. And as Indigenous author and botanist Robin Wall Kimmerer has taught through examples in nature, all flourishing is mutual. Religious naturalism provides not only a place for ideas to flourish, but provides a pathway for greater flourishing for all bodies in an age defined by ecological peril and existential climate change crisis. I believe religious naturalism may provide the recipe for flourishing, a guiding star to follow that future ancestors will be able to point to and say, there is a piece of the Homo sapien liberation story, when they began to live in a new way, reconnected to each other and to meaning, to the spiritual aspects of our lives. I think this is especially important in a time when we have artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, I'll just describe it. It's not describable by even the people who invented it. Okay, so this amazing thing that is artificial intelligence is coming, it's here. And yet we often still have science and technology is talking here, religion is talking here, and we haven't actually brought some of these things into our mythos, into our stories of what it means to be. And I think that is necessary for something like artificial intelligence, to fold the phenomenon that is artificial intelligence into the interdependent web that we are living in, and not as something separate from it. I think the sooner we do this, the better. Another example has to do with evolution. So by acknowledging and really accepting evolution as a part of our origin story, as part of the way that we come into being and continue to be part of this creative energy of Earth, one of the estimates right now with the changing climate that we're in is that the rate of extinction of species is thousands of times higher than at other times of recorded history, or that we can see from studies. Biodiversity comes from specialization, right? So when you have an environment, you have a long time in that environment, you can specialize to it. In a rapidly changing environment, who is doing well are the generalists. Those who have lots of plasticity or even in their genetics have adaptation as part of who they are. Because every single species in a rapidly changing environment has three options. Move to where your conditions are what you've had in the past, adapt to the new conditions, or die. That is what we are all facing. So evolution, the ability to adapt to this, one of the things that we're hearing from scientists is that the pace is just too fast. Evolution can't keep up. So for example, our bodies have evolved with the climate that we have. We sweat in certain ways, we stand upright, we can catch more wind that way. There's all these different theories about why we are the way we are as it relates to the earth that we've inhabited. But it's getting hotter and our bodies aren't made for that. And it could evolve, but not in the time frame and the pace that's happening right now. So, adaptation, sharing stories of adaptation, sharing stories of resiliency, recognizing the eco-grief that's happening, recognizing that pain is not an enemy, that the pain of understanding climate change and the pain of our own role in it is something that isn't a threat to your happiness. But as Joanna Macy, a Buddhist teacher and writer, says, it is a call to action. It's a call to heal something that's broken. That is the great gift of pain. And so if we are feeling pain in a changing climate, it's just calling us to act. And if we're paying attention, we know what to do. And that is, again, where religion and religious naturalism could help play a role in providing all of us spaces where we can come to terms with what's happening. We can face it together and not feel maybe discouraged or so overwhelmed as to not act at all. The religiousness of religious naturalism asks us to wrestle with these ethical and moral implications of being amongst the immensity of the universe, while literally in relationship with ongoing creativity. It is so immense and as close to us as our own breath. We are able to create music and poetry on this planet Earth, which is this grain of dust on the scale of galaxies, hurtling through space 1.6 million miles each day. Wow. We've been connected to the beginning of time and will be connected to all that comes in all things great and small. And upon this earth, on a hill in South Dakota, a teenager looked up and saw 3 falling stars. In so many ways, that brought me here today, sharing this message in community with you. It's enough to make you wonder. Amen.